The house at the end of Maple Street cut a jagged silhouette against the Ohio night. Ethan, Lucas, and Maya stood on the porch, their breath blooming in the freezing air. Ethan gripped the rusted handle and pushed. The door held fast, a dead weight against his palm, before it groaned and finally gave way. They stepped inside. The air was thick, heavy with the scent of wet rot and decades of undisturbed dust. Their flashlight beams cut through the gloom, illuminating floorboards that shrieked under their weight. Maya swept her light across the peeling walls, the beam catching a portrait. She stopped. The eyes in the painting seemed to track their movement. Ethan kept his light trained on the hallway ahead, where the darkness felt almost solid. Lucas tapped his foot against the wood. They moved forward, deeper into the rot, the floorboards groaning with every step they took, signaling their intrusion. Maya swept her flashlight across the peeling wallpaper, the beam landing on a portrait whose eyes seemed to track their every movement. She shivered, but before she could speak, the front door slammed shut with a force that rattled the entire frame. The sound echoed like a gunshot through the narrow hall. Lucas lunged for the handle, twisting it violently, but the metal remained immovable, fused to the lock. The air grew dense, pressing against their chests, making every breath a struggle. From the darkness of the upper floor, a rhythmic sound emerged. Thud, drag, thud, drag. It was slow, deliberate, and heavy. The trio froze. Ethan gripped a heavy iron poker from the fireplace, his knuckles turning white as he braced his feet against the floorboards. The sound continued, descending the staircase with agonizing precision. Thud, drag, thud, drag. They stood, paralyzed, the flashlight beams shaking in their hands. As the rhythm grew louder, closer, and more distinct with every passing second, the house was no longer just watching them. It was hunting them. They could not move. They could not retreat. And they could not look away from the staircase, where the darkness seemed to be spilling downward. The stairs groaned under their weight, the wood feeling soft and unstable, as if the house were trying to swallow their feet. They reached the landing. A single door stood ajar, bleeding a sickly, flickering yellow light into the hallway. Ethan did not wait. He kicked the door open, the wood splintering inward. A massive, antique mirror dominated the room, its glass clouded with age and grime. Maya let out a sharp, jagged cry that died in her throat. In the reflection, 3 figures stood in the center of the room, but behind them, a towering, ink-black shape loomed, its face a void of hollow sockets. They spun around, weapons raised, searching for the source of the darkness. The room was empty. Dust motes danced in the stagnant air, undisturbed. They looked back at the mirror, their hearts hammering against their ribs. The shadow was now inches away, its elongated, spindly fingers hovering just above their shoulders. Lucas screamed, a raw sound of pure terror, and the trio scrambled back. The shadow in the glass did not move, but the air in the room grew freezing, and the flickering light died. Lucas screamed, and they bolted. They hit the hallway at full speed, but the space had changed. The corridor, once short, now stretched into an impossible distance, the walls blurring as they ran. Doors flickered in and out of existence along the wood panels, snapping shut with violent cracks. Behind them, the heavy thudding footsteps accelerated, vibrating through the floorboards with enough force to knock them off balance. Ethan slammed into a wall, his shoulder hitting hard, but he scrambled up, fueled by the cold air pressing against his back. Maya reached for a handle, but the door vanished under her fingers, leaving only smooth, unbroken plaster. The thudding grew louder. Finally, the front door appeared at the end of the hall, swinging wide as if pushed by an invisible hand. They tumbled forward. In the upstairs window, the shadow stood perfectly still, its mouth stretching into a wide, jagged grin that cut through the darkness. The sun rose over the neighborhood, but it brought no warmth to Ethan. He sat on the edge of his bed, his hands trembling as he stared at the glowing screen of his phone. He opened his gallery, looking for a record of the night, and stopped. A single high-resolution photo sat in the folder. He had no memory of taking it. It was a selfie of the three of them, captured in the mirror of the old house. In the frame, the ink-black shape was no longer lurking behind them. It stood directly between Ethan and the others, its hand resting firmly on his shoulder. Ethan tried to swipe away, but the image remained frozen. He watched, paralyzed, as the edges of the photo began to blur. A thick, oily darkness started to bleed out from the screen, staining his fingertips. The cold from the house was back, radiating from the glass, creeping up his arm and into the room. The shadow was not just in the photo anymore. It was here,